Welcome, welcome, welcome. I actually am okay. Let me. I think I'm ready now. Excellent. Welcome to our live recording of the Fit Muslimah Podcast. I'm going to get our Insta people on here real quick. Give me a minute to get my Insta people here. I think my Insta people are with us. Here we go. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. How is everyone doing? I have not been live since last week, but we are here every Thursday, and I am finally launching the Fit Muslimah podcast. And so you are going to get to listen to the podcast live every Thursday. Some days we'll have guests, some days we won't have guests. Today, I am your guest. And so I'm going to start my spiel because today we are talking about the things that affect your weight that has nothing to do with the amount of calories that you're taking in. So here we go. So how many times, first, let me start off by saying, Assalamu alaikum, Insta people. I'm going to cut all of this part off the podcast, just so you know. But we're going to get started, all right? How many times have you heard this statement? 3,500 calories equals 1 pound. You decrease your intake by 500 calories a day, and in 7 days, you will lose 1 pound. 500 times 7, 3,500 calories. But if you want to lose additional weight, you need to burn an additional 500 calories a day in exercise, and you'll increase your weight loss by another pound and lose another pound a week. That equals another 3,500 calories. And then you do that and you wonder, why am I still fat? This is a question that I actually asked myself after my 40th birthday when I was doing everything right and I was in the best shape of my life, but I wasn't losing weight. So today, what I'm going to do is to share with you all the answers that I found to that question and why it had nothing to do with the fact that being within my calorie range, that I was exercising 6 days a week, and I was doing everything that I thought was right and still not losing weight. So stick around for the Fit Muslimah podcast today, and we're going to talk about why you could be doing everything correct and still not losing any weight at all. Okay, so we've been doing everything right. We're eating low fat. We are eating high carbs. We're eating whole grains. We were exercising, doing cardio, doing resistance training, and the weight isn't going anywhere. I'm going to share with you today my journey on weight loss. And yes, my name is Mubaraka Ibrahim. I am a health and fitness coach, and I was still doing stuff wrong. Okay, so this is in full transparency. If you've been following me for any time, you know that I am a health and fitness coach. I have a bachelor's degree in exercise science, psychology, and public health. I have 13 fitness and nutrition certifications. I've been coaching clients for over 20 years. And when I got 40, I was 30 pounds overweight. And I was doing everything that I told my clients to do and was working for them, but it wasn't working for me. anymore. It was things that I was taught in school and during my certifications on nutrition and nutrition and exercise psychology and all of these things. I was told this is what you tell people to do, which is just exercise, eat less calories, and the weight will come off. And the truth is, that's not working. And we know that because as a society, we're actually getting more overweight, despite the fact that more people exercise now than they did 20 years ago. When they're surveyed, more people say they watch the amount of calories that they take in than did 20 years ago. But as a country, we're getting bigger, our children are getting bigger, and every single disease that's related to obesity is become an epidemic. It has become no more profound of what a huge problem all of these diseases are than when COVID hit, because they were all risk factors for COVID. So what do we do when everything that we thought was working really isn't? I think the first thing that we have to do is we have to stop saying this. Stop thinking that all calories are alike. We have to stop making documentaries like Super Size Me and all of these other things that are just based on increasing the amount of calories a person eats to show, hey, if you eat more calories, you're going to get fat. You're going to be overweight. The reason why you're fat is because you're just greedy. You don't exercise and you're lazy. Well, if you got up and you worked out more, then you would lose more weight. Well, if you ate less calories, how about having a salad for lunch some days? All of these things are really blaming people for things that, one, a lot of it is out of their control until they know how to control it. And number two, it's proof that even when you do those things, it doesn't always work. Most of the time, it doesn't. So what are the things that sabotage your weight loss? What are the things that actually work when you apply them? So what we want to talk about is things that I found along the way that is a huge, huge impact on weight, on losing weight, and maintaining a healthy weight. So my story actually on weight loss, I've had different levels of weight throughout my life. After all, I have 4 children. So between complications before pregnancy and weight after pregnancy, in my 44 years of life, my weight has gone up and down, up and down. I was not an athlete in college or in grammar school. During those years, they didn't let you wear hijab and actually play school sports. So it was an out for me, being that I was hijabi since puberty. So I didn't do those things. And so I had to learn how to incorporate exercise and healthy living into my life as a lifestyle, not as a sport. And so I think that puts me on a little different trajectory than a lot of people who love exercise and fitness and do it as a career. When I turned 40, then when I started getting my late 30s, I started gaining weight, and I was still doing all of the things that I normally do. And so in my mind, I said, well, maybe it is my fault. Maybe I'm not being consistent with my exercise. Maybe I need to exercise more. And so for my 40th birthday, I set a goal. And I'm a total goal setting person. I believe in making short-term goals, making long-term goals, keeps you focused. And so because I had done, different things, and I was like, what have I not achieved, right? So I decided for my 40th birthday, I would become Army fit. All right. No intentions at all of joining the U.S. Army, but I was like, if I wanted to, I could do that. We do that sometimes, especially as hijabis. If I wanted to look bad in that outfit, I could do that, right? But I'm not going to do that because I'm Muslim and I believe in Allah and I fear the hellfire and all that other good stuff. But I decided to become Army fit. So I looked up the requirements that if I wanted to join the Army at 40, how fit would I need to be? So I trained in order to be Army fit by my 40th birthday. That meant doing 40 push-ups in 1 minute, being able to do 76 sit-ups in a minute, and be able to run 2 miles in 17 minutes. That is an 8.5 minute mile, right? That was in order to get 100 on the Army test. So for about 4 or 5 months, I went to the gym 6 days a week, right? And all of this time, I'm eating all of the things that I thought I was supposed to be eating. I'm like, okay, as I began to increase my fitness and my exercise in order to become Army fit, if I pair that with a proper diet, then the weight will definitely come on, because it kind of snuck up on me. I'm going to be honest, right? So, and I can't blame COVID, because this was 4 years ago, before COVID even existed, but it snuck up on me. Slowly, a pound here, 2 pounds there, a vacation cheat turning into a month cheat. You know how it goes, right? So being a health and fitness trainer does not make you immune from doing all that stuff. Sometimes we lapse as well. So I then began to do everything that I was supposed to be doing. So like a couple of months into this, I'm like, wow, like the scale isn't going anywhere. I'm in a calorie deficit. I'm eating all the things that I'm supposed to eat. I'm not even having cheat days. So I'm like, there has to be something wrong. There's something wrong with me. You know, the first thing that we say, what's the first thing that we think of when we say we're not losing weight? My thyroid must not be working. My metabolism has stopped. I have no thyroid function. So I rush to my doctor and I'm like, there is something wrong. I'm exercising 6 days a week. I'm eating low fat. I'm eating a calorie deficit, and my weight has not budged more than 5 pounds either way. And I'll lose 3 and I'll gain 2, and I'll increase my exercise from an hour to an hour and a half, to taking an extra walk, to going on an extra hike, and the weight isn't going anywhere. Doctor, been my doctor since I was 16. She's like, okay, no problem. Let's run some tests. Like, it got to be my thyroid. So I need a thyroid. I need this. I need that. Because, you know, in the age of Google, Dr. Google, before we go to the doctor, we always want to Google all of the tests that we're going to ask them for. So I did that. I Googled all the tests. I need this test and I need that test and I need to know this number and that number. And she knows me by now. She knows that I'm going to ask for all of the right stuff, but she's up on her game and she's like, no problem. Let's do a complete metabolic function. Let's test your thyroid. Let's do this, right? She ran a whole slew of tests. I have a very thorough doctor. She understood how concerned I was. I'm very concerned about my weight, not because of looks, because diabetes runs very strongly on my mother's side of the family. High blood pressure runs very strongly on my father's side of the family. And it is my goal not to succumb to either one. So that is my why. Why? Because I do not want to develop these diseases, right? So she ran all these tests. And I'm like, okay, once I find out what's wrong, that's my thing. Like, just give me the information. I just want to know. Let me know what's wrong, and then we can go from there. Come back to get the results from my tests. She's like, well, this number looks good, and that number looks good, and that number, well, you're in the normal range for all of the tests. Like, literally, not one test came back abnormal. Thyroid was functioning. My A1C was fine. My blood pressure was great. Like my cholesterol was great. Everything was great. But I'm like, I am literally almost the fittest that I've ever been in my life. And why am I still overweight? So that brought me back to the books. That brought me back to the research. I'm like, this whole idea of calories in versus calories out is a load of crap, because I'm doing it and it's not working. All right. So at that point, I realized that our body is not a bank. It's more like the stock market, meaning it is not just the calories that you take in, it is where those calories are coming from and the quality of those calories that is going to make a huge difference in your weight and in your health. So here are some of the things I learned and why I will never tell people to watch the amount of calories that you're eating so you don't overeat, right? When we talk about calories in versus calories out, and we talk about how it affects our weight, it's not just about the calories. It's also about the quality of those calories. I know you've heard that before, but let me explain. There is something inside of the metabolic process when we take in food and when we burn food, when we say our metabolism is running at 1,500 calorie rate, your basal metabolic rate is this. Part of that basal metabolic rate, and a metabolism is responsible for much more than just regulating our weight. That really totally minimizes it. It is responsible for so many other bodily functions. But today we're just going to talk about how it affects our weight. Part of that metabolism, or how much calories you burn a day, is what is the amount of calories you're actually using to metabolize the food and beverages that you eat, right? These are our digestive calories. How many calories are you actually going to burn, right? We have foods that are considered free foods. Free foods are nicknamed that, for lack of a better term, so that it can indicate there are things that we can eat as much of it as we want, and theoretically, we will never gain weight from it. I say theoretically because, for example, we're going to talk about broccoli today. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody or any research studies where they put people on a only broccoli diet for a week or a month and to see if this theory actually works out. That would probably be really hard, and you'll have a hard time getting people to stick to that research. But let's use it as an example. So we know that a cup of broccoli has about 10 calories. But when research looked at how many calories do your body use in order to actually burn off the 10 calories that's contained in broccoli, it takes our body 30 calories. We must expend 30 calories to just digest broccoli. So when you are consuming broccoli, you're actually giving yourself a calorie deficit without doing anything else other than eating the broccoli. So that makes broccoli theoretically a free food. A free food is foods that take more energy expenditure to digest them than what is in the food itself. So how could that be calories in versus calories out? When you're not just eating the calories, you're also breaking those calories down. It comes to my second point, eating processed foods, right? We hear this so often. Don't eat processed foods. Don't eat processed foods. Let's talk a little bit about what exactly is processed foods and why it can sabotage your weight loss. So first, processed foods, really easy to determine. It's foods that are processed, that in some way had human intervention, had a manufacturing process, right? So processed foods isn't just potato chips and cookies. Processed foods is also bread. Processed foods is anything that you are going to find inside of a package has more than one or two ingredients, right? So bread is considered a processed food, even if it's whole wheat, even if it's organic, even if it's made from oats, even if it's made from sprouted grain, it is a processed food, all right? Things like, obviously, cakes, cookies, things that are in a box, even if they're in a box and the box says paleo approved or keto approved or this approved or that approved, if there is room for them to write an approval and put a stamp on it, then it was processed, right? One of the reasons why processed foods really sabotage your weight is number one, remember those digestive calories I talked about earlier? Your body actually burns less digestive calories metabolizing processed foods than it does metabolizing the actual food itself, because part of the process is cooking that food in some manner, shape, or form. I'll give an example of oatmeal, right? So you can buy actually whole rolled oats, or you can buy the convenient little instant oatmeal packs. The convenient instant oatmeal packs actually has processed the oatmeal and began to break down the oats, right? In a way that is much more significant than when you just cook whole oats. So you are actually not using as many calories to break the oats down as you would if you ate the whole oat, right? So that is an example of how processed foods actually helps to sabotage our weight, right? So no instant oatmeal. If you're eating oatmeal, go for the whole oat, right? It is going to actually give you more calorie burn on the back end. Another way in which processed foods really do sabotage our weight, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more later, which is it actually throws off our gut biome. And our gut biome, the bacteria in our gut, all of that entire environment in our gut is so important and has been proven in research to actually cause you to gain weight. And it's a research study done on twins, one obese and one not obese, and they actually looked at gut biome. So we know how important that is. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So another reason why calories in versus calories out is not appropriate and not indicative of weight loss is also to how the foods you eat are actually affecting your hormones. Now, I've done so many videos, so many social media posts on the effect of insulin, because it's such a major factor in whether or not you are going to actually store that food or you're going to burn that food as energy. So when you are taking in 110 calories of, say, rice versus 110 calories of olive oil, both of them are 110 calories, but they are going to metabolize in a completely different way. The same thing of 110 calories of chicken, olive oil, and rice, right? The way that it affects your hormones is going to decide whether or not you are going to store it or store a majority of those calories versus burn those calories. So, for example, if you take in 110 calories of rice, rice is a carbohydrate. It is going to increase your insulin level. Your insulin is a fat storage hormone. The signal that it sends to your body is, hey, we now have additional calories that we can store as fat. Because a long time ago, before we had refrigerators, before we had ways to store our food, our body naturally wanted to actually hold on to calories for later use. That tire that you have around your belly, that extra fat on your thighs, the extra fat on your arm, that's like your own food storage containers, right? That is what our body thinks that we need before we had actual food storage that's trying to hold it for later use. Well, insulin and the presence of insulin is one of the things that causes our body to kick in that instinct of, hey, we need to store these calories as fat. So when you're eating olive oil versus eating rice, your body is going to act completely different. One of the really interesting things is that one of the documentaries that became really popular is a documentary called Super Size Me, where Morgan Spurlock, he ate only McDonald's for like 30 days, gained some insane amount of weight, and developed non-alcoholic fatty liver and all of these other problems. And he blamed it on the calories. he blamed it on the quality of food. But in fact, other people have done similar studies and actually lost weight, right? So it wasn't just, there was another guy who did a documentary to disprove Morgan Spurlock's documentary, and he ate 30 days of McDonald's, but only chose things that was relatively healthy and did not have all of those issues. So it is not just, and he stayed within the same calorie count. There's also a blogger who did a very similar experiment, and he ingested over 5,000 calories, but not exceeding more than 10% carbohydrates. And it was twice the amount of calories that's recommended for his size. And he actually lost weight, body fat, and decreased his waist size. So all of this shows that it's not just how much you eat, it's actually what you're eating. If you are eating things that are going to raise your insulin level, you're going to store more body fat. If you're eating things that are going to disrupt your gut biome, you're going to store more body fat. So let's talk a little bit about the types of food and how it actually affects our gut. So we know that we have a whole variety of bacteria in our gut. Some of it is good. Some of them is quote unquote bad. Bad bacteria are things that really balance out the good bacteria. And our goal is actually to keep a balance of both good and bad bacteria in order for us to be healthy. A disruption in the gut biome is called dysbiosis. It's an imbalance of the gut bacteria. Well, dysbiosis has been indicated in diabetes. It has been indicated in Crohn's disease. It has been indicated in even things like high blood pressure. Certain gut bacteria really affect the way that our body processes the foods that we eat. When they looked at dysbiosis, they wanted to research why is it that even in twins that have the exact same DNA, why is it that some are overweight and some are not overweight, right? So I actually have twins in my family. I did not personally give birth to twins, but I do have sisters, 2 sisters actually, who have both given birth to twins. And they aren't identical twins. One is a boy and a girl. The other one are 2 boys. And you can see the physical difference. And I do have twins in my family where one is very obese and the other is really thin. And you think wow, if all of your DNA is the same except for a couple of things, right? Because you're two different individuals and you do have your differences. Why isn't your metabolism working the same? Why isn't other things about what you eat and how you eat and what you like, why isn't that the same? And why does it make such a drastic difference? Well, researchers were really interested in this too. And it's really interesting that they actually did a study of the guts of 77 pairs of twins. One whom was obese and one whom wasn't. And they found that they had completely different gut bacteria. Right? So DNA is the same, but the gut bacteria was actually very different. The twin that was obese actually had much fewer of the gut bacteria that helps to control weight. How does it control weight? There are about a dozen gut bacteria that have been directly related to weight and obesity. And what the function of some of these gut bacteria, for example, is to actually tell your stomach how much of the food it should store as fat versus how much of it should actually burn as energy. And by your gut bacteria being imbalanced, if you have more of the bacteria that tells your body to store something as fat, then you're actually going to hold weight and gain weight, right? So another function of this gut bacteria is to actually break down the fibers that we eat. This is why we're constantly hearing how a high fiber diet is related to lower weight, right? One of the reasons is not just because, and a lot of people will say that, oh, it's because fiber fills you up. Actually, yeah, that's true, but that's not really the reason. Protein fills you up too. Like fat fills you up. So having a high fiber diet is not just about filling you up and making you feel more full. Part of the reason why it's related to lower weight is because the gut bacteria actually is activated by the fiber, and it actually activates a bacteria that causes you to convert that into more energy, and it does, get this, lowers your insulin level. Remember, we're constantly talking about how insulin level is a huge determiner of whether or not you're going to store something as fat or you're going to burn it as energy. Insulin is a fat storage hormone. So the interesting thing that you should know specifically about insulin, and of course, I'll talk about this more in upcoming podcasts, is insulin is really the pen to it all. When it comes to gut bacteria, when it wants to store fat, it messes with your insulin level. When it comes to stress and cortisol, when your body wants to store fat due to stress, it messes with your insulin level. When it comes to the foods that you eat and when you eat, intermittent fasting, for example, many people think intermittent fasting works because, oh, you're eating less calories. That's actually not why it works. It works because it lowers your insulin level for a longer period of time, allowing your body to burn fat longer. That is really the purpose of intermittent fasting, not cutting calories. You can eat the exact same amount of calories just in a specific timed window, and you will still lose weight because you have a longer period of actually burning fat, right? So super important. Insulin really is the kingpin. So let's talk about other things that you want to incorporate into your diet in order for you to have a healthy gut biome. So we talked about fiber. We know that vegetables are a huge source of fiber. So I am constantly telling people, if you want to do one thing, if you feel like, oh my God, I am in a part of my life where I can't focus on a diet, I really need to lose weight, but I got all of this other stuff going on, do one thing: increase the amount of vegetables that you eat. Start there. And then the snowball effect will happen. Another thing that really has a lot of fiber is nuts, increased nuts. And we're talking non-processed stuff, right? We want plain nuts. We don't need the nuts that's coated in sugar and salt and all this other stuff, right? When I talk about increasing foods that are rich in fiber, I'm talking about whole foods, whole unprocessed foods. Another one that you've probably heard a lot about, we'll definitely have to do a podcast specifically on fermented foods like yogurt, kombucha, kefir, sauerkraut, right? All of those things actually contain beneficial bacteria for your guts. And probiotics and prebiotics. We see them all of the time, but when you're going to the store or going to the vitamin section, make sure that you're actually reading the bottle and getting the probiotics that's appropriate for what you would like them for. So probiotics and prebiotics have both been associated with weight loss, gut health, brain health, so many different beneficial effects of probiotics. But in addition to adding these things, there's certain things that you want to take out of your diet. Now, you've been following me long enough, and you know that the first thing that I am going to say is starts with an S, ends with an R, starts with an S, ends with an R. Sugar. Eliminate sugar. Sugar does so many things to your body that is going to prevent, not just halt, but prevent you from losing weight. And when I say sugar, I mean all sugar. Yes, I mean honey. Yes, I mean molasses. Yes, I mean agave nectar. And obviously, I mean all of the saccharins and aspartames and all those other things. Eliminate sugar from your diet. So sugar does several things. Number one, sugar increases the bad bacteria in your gut. And it's going to contribute to you having an overgrowth of bad bacteria. So having a lot of sugar, the ice cream late at night, the cookies, the baklava, the everything else that has all of those sugar, because sugar is sugar is sugar. I tell people all the time, it really, when it comes to your body and how your body reacts on a hormonal level, on a bacterial level, your body does not care whether or not it's a candy bar or if it's baklava, okay? It doesn't care if it is high fructose corn syrup or if it's honey. It is going to have, sugar is a chemical compound, and it is going to react chemically in your body, both on your insulin as well as your gut bacteria. So we know that sugar does a few things. Number one, it disrupts your gut biome by increasing significantly your bad bacteria, which is going to give you an imbalance of bacteria and lead to all of the other things that we talked about. Number two, sugar literally competes in your bloodstream with vitamin C, which we know is a huge component that is going to increase your immune system and keep your immune system strong. So when you're sick, the first thing that you need to do, most people will be like, oh, let me have some vitamin C. Let me go get the little fizzy vitamin C's or the vitamin C supplements. And for the life of me, I still do not understand why people sell things like vitamin C gummies with sugar. It's literally like eating nothing. Can we just stop with the gummy thing? All right. So I wasn't going to go there, but I got to go there. Can we just stop? Okay. Can we stop adding sugar to nutrients that are actually neutralized by the sugar that you're taking them with? Stop. All right. All right. So I'm going to digress. All right. Let me digress. I'm going to pull back for a minute. I'm going to pull back. Just eat it in your foods. Whole greens, collards, spinach, kale. They are an abundance of vitamin C in them. So make sure that you're eliminating sugar. Eliminate artificial sugar. Things like aspartame and saccharin actually also disrupts your gut biome. And things that have unhealthy fats. So unhealthy fats and too much of it, unhealthy processed fats, right? Corn oil, vegetable oil, those things that are not naturally fatty, they had to go through a huge processing period in order for them to turn. Can you think about corn, right? Think about how corn is naturally low fat and high carb, but somehow they convert it into corn oil. Ever wonder how that's done? Go Google a YouTube video. It's not a pretty process. Take those things out of your diet. So those are some of the things that are really important when it comes to how we are eating and how it sabotages our weight. And it's not about the calories. So you can eat a hypercaloric diet that is low in carbohydrates and you will not gain weight. Hypercaloric means technically, according to their calculations, you're consuming more calories than you're actually expending. But research shows that you won't gain weight if you're consuming a hypercaloric diet, but the source of the foods is not high carbohydrates, right? So there's a lot of things that goes into weight loss, and weight management. It's not about calories in versus calories out. It's also about some of the health habits that we have. So when it comes to sleep is a huge component on, again, what is the thing that sleep is going to affect? What is, and I said it was the pin that puts everything together. It is what I constantly refer to as the domino hormone. Every process in our body, every health habit that actually improves our health knows that if it manipulates our insulin level, if it knocks that one domino down, then the rest will fall. So they found in research about sleep is when you are sleep deprived, and that may mean only a few nights of 2, 3, or 4 nights of not getting enough sleep, you actually can increase your insulin level, even if you're not diabetic, to diabetic and pre-diabetic levels. They have correlated sleep issues with people developing diabetes, and people with diabetes generally have sleep issues because it is one actually affects the other. So it's really important that you get enough sleep, right? We talk about our kids gaining the freshman 15. The freshman 15 isn't just because the cafeteria has a whole bunch of junk food. I mean, it's processed food. It's probably contributing. But a part of that contributing factor is young people don't sleep enough. They think it's cool to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning and party, but they got to get up at 7, right? So that is actually a part of the process. Or even those who aren't partying, hey, I'm going to do an all-nighter. I saw a recent post on social media, Black Girl Magic post, and the sentiment was great. And it said, like, me and my roommate slept with the light on until we graduated, and now we get to turn the light off. Bad idea. Don't do it. All right. That is not a good habit. It is not going to contribute to you getting better grades. It's not going to contribute to focus. It's actually going to do the opposite and make it much harder, in addition to affecting your sleep quality, and your insulin and weight. So, not a good idea. Congratulations to these ladies for their amazing accomplishment of being doctors now, but hopefully people will take that away, their hard work and effort, and not the actual technique that they use. Don't sleep with the light on, people. We're going to talk about light and circadian rhythm and all that other stuff in some future podcast episodes, but just take my word on for it for now. Don't do that. That's not a good idea at all. It actually sabotages you. So those are the things that I learned, and what I learned along the process of trying to lose weight over 40 is it's not how much you eat, it's actually what you eat. And so from that process is how I developed my MR40 method and wrote my book about why it's so important for us to balance our insulin level, break our sugar addiction so that we can balance hormones, and finally let go of the weight and let go of the shame of feeling like we're just greedy and lazy and that's why we're fat. It's not that easy, and it's not that simple. And if it was, we wouldn't have an obesity epidemic right now. So that is my spiel for today. I want to thank you for listening. You've been listening to the Fit Muslimah Podcast, where we talk about food, faith, and fitness. I'm your host, health and happiness coach Mubaraka Ibrahim, and this is where we explore the concept of physical, mental, and spiritual well-being intertwined, and how the weakness of one weakens them all, and the strengthening of one strengthens them all. We're recording live every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Fit Muslimah Facebook page. And you can watch the archive, or rather listen to the archive podcast on any of your favorite podcast platforms. I wish you a great day. Make sure that you go about your day and you think health and happiness. And I'll talk to you next week. Assalamu alaikum.